Hey guys! First of all, some good news! After much procrastination, I did eventually pimp out the channel a little. I changed the background and avatar everywhere with a personalized design made by a friend, and I also finally got around making a proper intro for the World of Tanks and World of Warships videos. Let me know how you did like it. So, we are once again back to World of Warships, but again, the topic is anything but aircraft carriers. What happened? Well, as you probably also noticed, the current meta is complete bullshit for CV players once again. US carriers that are being played mostly these days completely dominate the sky with their fighters, making the life of Japanese CV captains a complete nightmare. And, to top it off, in doing so they also screw themselves over, as in a lot of matches the only thing they can do is to hopefully kill off the enemy US fighters and then passive scout for the rest of the game and maybe try to ninja a destroyer kill or two with that one lousy dive bomber squadron. And the worst of all, even if they are lucky and run into enemy CVs with a full aggressive layout, after completely wiping the floor with them, they can't really support the team effectively any longer, so more often than not, they can only helplessly watch as their team slowly melts away around them, knowing that they could heavily assist would they have the means to it. Now, all of this does not mean that I would have abandoned the carrier gameplay as such, cause that's just not true. I am however slower in my grind cause I play them less. I have already unlocked the Ryojo at tier 6 with the Japanese, and I'm slowly approaching the Independence again for the third time now, so there will definitely be some more CV content in the near future, but I will have to ask you for some more patience on this. Right, so with that out of the way, let's have a look at the fun department right now in World of Warships, and that's of course the destroyers. I especially enjoyed the stealth assassin playstyle of the Japanese line, so I thought it would be worth to take a look at the tier 4 Isokaze, the first really good destroyer on this stat tree, at least in my honest opinion. As usual, I will have a funky little gameplay included after the review, this time with 4 kills and almost 100,000 damage. If you would like to jump ahead, the timestamp stands ready in the description below. As for the rest of us, let's have a closer look at the past of this historical little ship. The Isokaze was the lead ship of its class of early destroyers serving in the Imperial Japanese Navy. Be careful though, they are not to be mixed up with the Kagero class destroyer that was named Isokaze that did serve during the Second World War. The in-game version is about the ship serving during 1916 to 1936, and it's easily identifiable by its 3 smokestack design. The Isokaze was a slight improvement on its predecessor, the Umikaze, as it received a better and more reliable engine, slightly more guns and one more dual torpedo launcher. Unfortunately, I could not really find anything interesting of their faith, apart maybe from one of them breaking into 2 and sinking only after about a year of service. The unlucky ship was called the Tokitsukaze, which was actually raised from the bottom of the ocean and recommissioned a few years later. Eventually, all 4 ships of this class were retired by the 1st of April 1936. Luckily for us, the in-game version of this ship will be anything but boring, and it's well capable of terrorizing even higher tier ships if they are used carefully. As to how they are capable of doing that and why it's miles better than the Umikaze and the Wakatake in the previous tiers, let's have a look together. So, first of all, why does the Isokaze feel so much better than the previous Japanese destroyers? The answer, as usual with most destroyers, lies in the torpedoes. The Isokaze gets an additional dual torpedo tube, so now it can fire 3 × 2 torpedoes, which is a huge improvement. What's even nicer is that those torpedoes go now fully upgraded with 68 knots, which is, unless I'm very much mistaken, currently the fastest torpedoes in the whole Japanese line. Both of these improvements make evading the torpedoes completely much more difficult, so your success rate should see an immediate buff. Now, talking about torpedoes, these babies do over 14,000 damage each, and your tubes have a rate of fire of 1.4 rounds per minute, which means a 42-second reload between your torpedo salvos. The torpedo tubes have also a 7-second turning time, which is alright, and the torpedoes themselves have a 7-kilometer range that you should be used to by now. Now, this range pretty much dictates the playstyle of these destroyers, especially if we put the concealment factors next to it. So, 7 km torpedo range, 6.1 km surface detectability range. Do you see the window of opportunity? If you manage to get your torpedoes away within range and turn away before you get spotted, you can nuke them without alerting them to the danger they are in, and without actually putting yourself at risk at all. Reducing your speed at the final stages of the run might be necessary not to overshoot and get detected, and it's also worth considering that targets moving away from you will probably outrun the torpedoes if you launch them at this stealth assassin range. Now, as we were talking about concealment, let's also mention that we have a 2.8 km air detectability range, so it should be fairly easy to keep those planes at a distance. Your A you can basically keep switched off all the time. Those two 40mm guns are basically only good for revealing your position while you are hiding in a smokescreen. Now, of course, if you are in the open, the AA gun's 2 km range is well within the plane's actual spotting range, so you might as well try to do some damage. But don't forget to switch it off again afterwards. Your main battery guns won't do much damage to the enemy either, at least I find myself barely ever using them. It's not that those 420mm guns would be bad with their 6 rounds per minute rate of fire and 9 km range, but their 22.5 second turning time and the fact that you will constantly have to maneuver means that they will pretty much always point in the wrong way in close quarter combat, and at long range you don't want to give your position away. Talking about maneuverability, it's an interesting mix. The top speed is about 34 knots, which is good but not amazing. Cruisers can have easily similar or even better. So there will be ships that you can't really outrun or close a distance too quickly enough. Your turning circle radius of 530 meters is, again, not bad but not amazing either. It's more like destroyer standard in these tiers. Now the 2.7 second rudder shift time on the other hand is pretty sweet, and you can really throw it around, making it a very difficult target indeed. And lastly, this ship has just over 10,000 hit points and at best 14mm of armor, neither of which you should really count on in an engagement. Right, so now that we did go wild on the stats, let's have a quick look on the upgrade grind on this ship. Luckily, I have some good news once again. This is not bad at all. You have anyways only 3 upgrades to worry about, and the focus one should definitely be the torpedo upgrade with increased damage and increased speed. Next up you can look into the general hull upgrade, and I would not really blame you if you would skip the firing range upgrade entirely. That's it. Easy as pie. Now regarding the optional upgrades, they are relatively straightforward as well in my opinion. I suggest Torpedo Tubes Modification 1 to make sure that they are out of order as little as possible, and for the second one I suggest Propulsion Modification 1. The biggest threat for a destroyer is the inability to move, and you can use this upgrade exactly to prevent that happening. Now if they knock out your steering, for example, you will at least still move around in circles, but if your propulsion is gone, you are a sitting duck during hunting season. As for the captain skills, the first 3 tiers that you will most probably have unlocked on this ship I would set up as the following. Tier 1 is Situational Awareness. Now that everybody knows well that staying hidden is basically life and death for a destroyer, I guess this choice didn't surprise anyone really. At Tier 2 there is another favorite, the Torpedo Armament Expertise for the 10% reduction on the reload of the torpedo tubes. And finally at Tier 3 I would go for Superintendent for that additional stack of smokescreen. So, this was a quick overview on the Isokaze. I think it's time to bring it out of the port and rain torpedoes on the hopefully unsuspecting enemy. So, here we are in our Isokaze. Tier 4 destroyer, Tier 5 match. No problem. What we would like to see is lots and lots of slow battleships that we can prey on. Unfortunately this time around there are only 3 of them on the enemy team. There are lots of cruisers that we can see, which is alright, but cruisers tend to move around just enough to avoid those bloody torpedoes. But another good news, there are only 2 enemy destroyers on the team. Now, destroyers can be a real pain in the ass when you are playing destroyers yourself, and that's because you will not spot them until about the last second, and when you do, suddenly you are lit up for a whole enemy team that's staying behind them, and suddenly you are getting shot at from 3 or 4 enemy ships, which is really not a situation you want to be in a destroyer. So, overall, not too bad. What's not in our favor, however, is this map. The ocean map is the bane of many destroyers. Luckily, the Japanese line fares fairly better on them. We don't really need cover in these machines, unlike the American ones. Our torpedoes have a long enough range so we can close the distance, and we have a just under 1 kilometer range where we can fire them off and quickly turn away without revealing ourselves. So if we are very careful about the distance to the closest enemy ship or airplane, we can be undetected, and we can do both an important scouting job, especially in the beginning, and especially on this map, while also being a major threat to the enemy. The usual enemy advancement zones are around the AB line and the IJ line. Having started on this side of the map, I'm moving towards the B line, trying to spot the enemy ships that will be moving up in that sector. Now, previously I mentioned airplanes, and the more seasoned destroyer captains have already noticed a pretty major mistake I made right at the beginning of the match, which is I did not turn off my AA guns. Now, I will get away with it for most of this match, but that's really something that you should get used to when playing destroyers. Just get into the habit of turning them off right as the match starts. It will save you a lot of hassle and will probably avoid getting yourself killed. Now, so far we have noticed that there is an enemy destroyer who popped a smoke screen, and there is a cruiser advancing behind the smoke screen. There is a bloody enemy plane that's luckily now gone, so we can be safe. And there are some more ships moving along the A line. Now, this cruiser is getting close to range. We have the torpedoes loaded, so we will carefully close the distance. We have a range of 7 kilometers, and I will fire my torpedoes right about now. And here is another mistake I make. Look how quickly that 1 kilometer distance melts away, and now I'm spotted. I unfortunately don't have 6th sense on this destroyer, because my captain was just in retraining. But yep, and there comes the enemy fire. I popped my smoke screen right away. I right away repair the gear so I can actually move, and I get the hell out of there. Lucky for me, that cruiser turns in the wrong direction and he eats both of my torpedoes. So that's the first kill, despite me screwing up quite monumentally there. That's really something that you just have to master. There are no two ways about it. When you get closer, take the speed a little bit back, especially if the cruiser or destroyer, so a faster moving enemy ship, moves into your direction. That 0.9 kilometer range can melt away super quickly. And when you notice that you have been spotted, it's mostly raining shells around you already. Now, another good thing that we can do here is to hold our fire. Let's not fire all torpedoes in one salvo, leave a bit of time in between them to make sure that if the ship turns, we have something to fire at them at their new trajectory. It seemed this cruiser is now moving in a relatively straight line. Of course, it's not a guaranteed hit. And this time around we did actually manage to stay outside of our zone. And he manages to avoid the torpedoes. Unfortunate. And that's okay. Torpedoes are now up once again, so it's time to do a second run. He seemed to be shooting wildly at something, so hopefully he is now really occupied, so let's fire some more torpedoes. Again, let's hold fire just a little bit. Alright, salvos are away, but I think he is now turning. So, that doesn't look too good either. Here is, however, something that we really like to see. It's an enemy battleship. And that guy did sail along the end side of the map for the last couple of minutes, really. So it's highly likely that he will continue to do so. Unfortunately, we do screw this up once again. As from 6.1 kilometers, I'm within range of this guy. He does see me. Luckily, he is really busy shooting at that other battleship, and that means that I can just calmly launch my torpedoes and then start to do some evasive maneuvers. Here comes the fire, and we do take a couple of hits, but he's still not turning. And that's exactly why destroyer captains really like to fire at battleships. Lots of juicy HP, lots of easy kills. And that was a 4 torpedo hit on a mostly full health battleship. So, not too bad, not too bad. Would have been even nicer if we would not have screwed up that attack run. But we managed to salvage it, so that's alright. Now you probably noticed that we scored no hits on that cruiser that we did fire just before the battleship. That's because the cruiser 1 did turn, 2 started to move away from us. And this is something I mentioned also in the review. If you launch your torpedoes while being undetected, that means outside of the 6.1 kilometer range, that means that those torpedoes will run out of gas before they can reach the enemy ship. The ship's moving away, so although they were in range when I did take the shot, as the ship is moving away constantly, they will just fall to the ground harmlessly before they could reach the cruiser. And that's a really good example here. That means we have to take a different trajectory. See, he is sailing away, and the torpedoes are faster, but they reach the end of their limit just before they could reach that cruiser. So right though, torpedoes are once again up and running in the meantime, so let's try to get into a better position. A bit of visibility for our battleship friends who are having a tea party, it seems, behind us wouldn't be too bad either. Okay, it seems the cruiser is now turning. Let's see if we can get a better shot. We take one more try. Again, I wait a little bit to see if he's turning. He's not. That's good. Now, we can shift our attention to that other cruiser right there. He is sailing in a completely straight line. So we can just keep on sailing parallel to him, keep our distance, and wait for our torpedoes to arm themselves once again. And that looks alright. Oh, he did actually stop, I think. Or at least he did slow down considerably. Oh well, what can you do? But we are up. That enemy ship is still sailing in a straight line. So let's give him our regards. And there are torpedoes bloody everywhere in the water. Now again, he is about at the limit of the torpedo range. But as he seems to be keeping the distance, that should be a fairly safe run. And looking at those torpedoes, I mean, now for sure he should see the warning. And he's just turning now, but... oh, bloody hell. Yeah, that was super unfortunate, and oh my god, we have been spotted. There is an enemy destroyer. You spotted that he's popping the smoke screen. We are losing him. We quickly fire torpedoes. We use a widespread now, because he will be moving around widely. We can see where the shots are coming from, so we can actually return fire. And we have to maneuver here. A, we are spotted, so enemy ships will shoot at us. And B, it's highly likely that he is launching his torpedoes as well. So we have to avoid it. Will we get lucky with our own shots? Come on. Do it for daddy. Nope, doesn't seem that way. Where are you, little bugger? He's here somewhere. Oh, there he is. Torpedoes are up again. We do have a widespread. So... one spread. Just as he moves. No, he's turning. Let's wait. One there, and let's predict. One about there. Okay, that looks much better. Again, keep maneuvering. Fire one salvo, and then get the hell out of here. Change trajectory, because he will be firing torpedoes as well. Oh my god, the carnage. Quickly put out the fire.
Problem solved, sir.
Let's get the hell out of here. Oh, there come his torpedoes, and I think we found him. Oh yeah, it really feels good when you win a destroyer on destroyer close quarter torpedo knife fight. And it's easier to do than you think. Just keep on maneuvering and blast that bastard out of into oblivion. Now to come back on that enemy cruiser that we did miss just before our destroyer encounter, it's something that a little frustration that you have to deal with. 7 kilometer range with combined with a 6.1 kilometer surface detectability range is not bad, but A, it's really easy to overshoot and get detected, and B, there will be quite often times when your torpedoes will just run out of power before they could reach the target, as even if they turn slightly, that will most probably be enough to avoid your torpedoes. If they would have 1 more kilometer range, would mean so much more, so many more kills. But hey. Anyways, there is another juicy battleship in front of us, who is sailing once again in a straight line. And these guys are having like 30-second reloads. There really should be no excuse for them not to turn, and he's still going. Going strong. I don't know, is he watching TV? Oh well, we are not complaining. And 3 of the torpedoes are well enough to sink him to the bottom of the sea. So the enemy is capping. They did break through in the south and completely took out our ships there, but we are just about capped. And as soon as we do, we will win the match, so let's see. Hopefully we can still do some damage. And here we go. Enemy cruiser there, he is turning, so let's predict where the torpedoes should go. Okay, that looks nice. Come on, let's do it. Again, we are well within range, but at this stage it's quite safe to do, because I'm really sure that we will win this battle. Ocean map or not, this was a rather enjoyable game after all. Especially on this map, I think we could showcase that stealth assassin playstyle that's so effective in the Japanese destroyers. And what's even better, sometimes we actually got it right as well. Now in the end we scored 10 torpedo hits and sunk 4 of the enemy ships, which is not too bad. And for this we got about 250,000 credits and 1840 base XP, which together with the current multipliers came out to a total of over 4000 XP earned in this battle. Not too shabby. Looking at the team scores, we managed to secure the first spot by XP earned and kills secured as well. And to be honest, I almost feel sorry we did not get to finish the rest of the enemy team off. So much juicy damage wasted. Now well, I guess with 97,000 overall damage we still can't really complain. Now 99% of this was direct torpedo damage. We launched 66 of them after all, which will mostly be the case with Japanese destroyers. I will rarely fire the guns on them under optimal circumstances, but that's just how these babies roll. So, this was my quick look at the Tier 4 Japanese destroyer, the Isokaze. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, thank you for considering giving it a like or sharing it. Next up, I will be back with World of Tanks with another review, this time probably on the T69, the Tier 8 American medium with an autoloader, and one of my current favorites. After that, I will have a quick look again at Armored Warfare, focusing this time on the artillery gameplay, and including the 2 Tier 4 SPGs that are currently available. Thank you very much for watching, enjoy the rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you again in one of the next videos.